Hello everyone, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Compressa. Now in this weapon series, I take a weapon, I build it out, and I test that weapon on its own merits, meaning I don't mix it with any kind of external factors that would increase its performance. That would be things like Warframe abilities, or pets putting statuses on enemies, things like that. I just test the weapon by itself, and I let the viewer make their own intelligent conclusion about those external things that could be added. So the Compressa is a secondary pistol. You get it from the Vent Kids in Fortuna. And I'll just show how it shoots here. It's kind of like a bubble gun. I tried to pick a color that made it show up a little bit better. Now let's get into the actual build here. Okay, so interesting things about the Compressa is that it's going to have viral innate, which is really good. I mean, viral is an amazing element. The next thing is that it has no IPS. It has no normal impact puncture slash stats. It has high multi-shot base. It has high base status chance. It has low base critical chance, low base critical multiplier, so it's not a great critical weapon. And it has a delayed radial AoE. So those bubbles, when you shoot them, they'll do a little bit of damage. You know, 300 damage is pretty respectable. That's not with any conditionals, though. But that's pretty respectable. But then if you look, you compare that to like the AoE 6,500 almost. You know, you can see you're getting a large portion of your damage from the radial instead of the direct. Okay, so there's different ways you can play the Compressa. I'm going to show the two ways. I'm going to show the damage way, where you use it as a main damage source, which would be this build. And I'm going to show it the other way, which a lot of people are also interested in, is as the primer. Hey, Slurp, how you doing today? So I have two primer builds here. They're very similar. There's just like a little bit difference on one of them. So, but the main damage source is the one I'm going to show right now. And for this one, we're going to be using Galvanized Diffusion for multi-shot, Galvanized Shot for status chance and direct damage per status type affecting the target. Now, Galvanized Shot is probably the weakest mod in here, and it's because you get most of your damage from AoE explosions. But the bottom part of Galvanized Shot isn't the only reason we're using Galvanized Shot. We're using it for the status chance as well. So, you know, you get both of the things from Galvanized Shot. You get the 80 status chance and the direct damage. And the direct damage still helps you because you are still going to be doing a lot of direct damage. It's just that you're going to be doing a lot more radial damage. And Galvanized Shot won't work on that radial damage. So that's why it's still on the build. It's still good, but it probably is the weakest slot. Hornet Strike for flat damage. Lethal Torrent for fire rate and multi-shot. We're going to go with the 60-60 Electric and the 60-60 Toxin to make Corrosive. Because remember, we already have Viral. So now we can make the second best general element, which will be Corrosive. And then we're going to make Heat. So we use the 60-60 Heat mod. And we're going to use the large primed heated charge. Or if you don't have primed heated charge, you could use the regular heated charge. And the reason we use two heat mods is to increase the heat weighting. So for anyone that doesn't know, the way status works, so I have a 108% status chance. That's a 100% chance to get one status. So I will always get one status per bullet, like per bubble. Actually, probably more because the radial is going to produce more too. But 100% chance per bubble to get one status and an 8% chance to get a second status. So what it does now when you get that 100%, like let's just say it was only 100%. I'm only going to get one status out of this. It does kind of a dice roll between all of the available elements that are underneath it here. So heat, viral, and corrosive. And whatever number is higher is like the percent chance to get it. So if you look here, our heat is like twice as high as our viral or our corrosive. So there's more. It's more likely that we're going to get a heat stack than these other two. And you want it that way because even though viral is probably the strongest element out of all of these, viral only stacks to 10. And same thing with corrosive. Corrosive has you know, there's a limit to it that it stacks to. Heat doesn't have a limit. Heat can stack infinitely. And so you want to be able to produce more heat procs than anything else. Otherwise, you would basically just be wasting possible status procs if you're just reprocking a viral on top of already having viral 10. You're basically not getting anything at that point. So that's why we go with 2 heat mods, is to get that weighting up a bit. Because I'll just show you here. If we go and we take off primed heat of charge, that heat weighting goes way down. Actually, Scorch isn't even enough to bring us over viral or corrosive. So now, you know, we wanted to make a heat heavy build, but this is definitely not going to be heat heavy. It's going to still be viral and corrosive heavy. And so the only way to get that at a reasonable level is to use heat of charge, or preferably primed heat of charge if you have it. Alrighty. Next, we're going to use lethal momentum for the Exilus. The bubbles do have a little bit of travel speed. It's not that horrible. You could live without travel speed on your bubbles, but it just makes it a little bit more comfortable. Something I did not test, and when we get into the actual gameplay of this, I might find that maybe I should have used it over lethal momentum, is primed pistol ammo mutation. And that's because this weapon, it only has 12 shots in the magazine. It has a pretty small ammo pool of like 100 and something, and so maybe I'll have ammo issues. I'm not really sure. I didn't do like an extended run on this to see how many times I had ammo issues. So maybe with the gameplay we'll see that maybe I should have used primed pistol ammo mutation over lethal momentum. But if it doesn't have ammo issues, then lethal momentum is going to be the better utility pick. And then finally here, in the Arcane slot, we're going to be using Cascadia Empowered. And the reason I'm in the Simulacrum is I wanted to show off some differences between 3 different Arcanes. Because there's a lot of people who like the Compressa, and there's a lot of people who swear on certain things on it. And some of those things are understandable. So Cascadia Empowered, on a status effect, it's going to deal 750 damage of the matching type of status effect. So 750 heat, viral, or corrosive damage in our case. Okay? Now, in my testing, I have found that Cascadia Empowered does the most damage. The other options, though, are Cascadia Flare and Secondary Encumber. So Cascadia Flare is basically just a 480% flat damage increase. So it's basically just a gigantic flat damage plopped on top of your already existing flat damage. And Secondary Encumber gives us more status effects. And those status effects increase the efficacy of our galvanized shot. But remember, this still doesn't affect the radials. So I want to show real quick on Empowered, and then I'm going to show the other 2 real quick, and just to show you why I chose Empowered. Although there is a case that maybe Flare in later content could be better than Empowered. So I'm just going to summon in 20 of the Exo Ghost Stag officers at the max level that I can get on Steel Path. Don't judge it right now because I have to get my conditionals up. So I'm basically going to just use this full line of enemies to get my conditionals up here. And once I have a full line of conditionals up, we're going to test it on a full health enemy, like on the right side of this map here. Probably up to this guy. Yep, okay. So I'm going to put 1 magazine. And I'm going to do 2 magazines. It didn't even need to go for a full 2 magazines. Let me reload here. 1 magazine. Reload. 2 magazines. But again, he's dead about halfway through that second magazine. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Flare. And you'll see Flare is similar. Flare is a little bit weaker, but it's going to be very similar. It's going to be like not 2 full magazines, close to being 2 full magazines. So let me just clear, kill, clear, and we'll restart this, officers. Here, boop, okay. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this first line, just making sure I get my conditionals up. So I have Flare fully stacked, but I want to get like Galvanized Diffusion and all the other ones stacked real quick. Just like I had in the other one. That way everything's equal. There's no differences. I think I need 1 more kill here. Yep, okay. So that's one magazine. I'm going to reload. Go to the second magazine here, and he's dead. And that wasn't the full second magazine. So this guy here, one magazine. I'm going to reload, and I'm going into the second magazine, and he's dead. It's about half. So Flare is very, very similar to Empowered. And now the weakest one of these is going to be Encumber. So we'll check out secondary Encumber. All right, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start on this side, make sure we get our conditionals up here. Now, you see with Encumber, look at all those statuses. That's the crazy thing about Encumber. And that's why when we get to the priming builds for the Compressa, Encumber is the way to go. But for the damage build, it's not really the way to go. But I just wanted to showcase that because I know I will have people saying otherwise. Make sure I have my conditionals here. 2 and 2. I think it has to be 3 and 4 in the top right. 3 and 4 is the max conditionals. So one more kill here. That's good. Okay. So we're going to have one magazine. Reload. 2 magazines. Reload. 3, and he's dead. So like 2.5. I probably could have just used 2, and then he would have died from the heat procs. So 1 magazine. 2 magazines, reload, and I'm getting into the 3rd, but he's dead. Okay. So as you see there, Flare and Empowered are the top 2, and they're very similar to each other. I feel like Cascadia Empowered does more damage, and so that's what I'm going to be going with. But Cascadia Flare, there's something about like the heat procs and the way heat does damage. I think Cascadia Flare, because of the flat damage increase, I would have to review like exactly how heat dot works again, like what gets factored in. I think the Arcane flats also get factored in, like the conditionals. So I think Cascadia Flare would over time do more damage. So like on higher level content where enemies stay up for a little bit longer, I think Cascadia Flare would probably beat out Cascadia Empowered. So you could pick either of these really. I'm going to stay with Empowered myself, but I think Empowered or Flare are the way to go. So that's that. And then before we do the gameplay, I just want to show off the priming builds too, because that's another reason people use the Compressa. It's one of the best primers in the game. So we'll go to this build here. But first, what is priming? Because there's going to be people that watch this that don't exactly know what priming is. Maybe they've heard it. Maybe they've hear people talking about, oh, you know, you got to get yourself a primer, you got to prime and all this stuff, and they have no idea what the hell priming is. So priming has to do with a mod on your melee weapon called Condition Overload. So Condition Overload, you get plus 80% melee damage per status type affecting the target. So the more statuses the enemies have, the more melee damage you do. And so when you're making a melee build and you're running around and you're just, you know, beating the shit out of everything, you want the enemies to have a lot of statuses because you're going to do a lot more damage with Condition Overload. And so that's what a primer is. So you're going to prime them first with your secondary. You're going to get a few shots on them, get a few statuses on them, and then you go into whacking with your Nakana or whatever weapon you're using. So priming builds are effectively like ZDPS builds, like 0 DPS builds. They're not exactly 0 DPS. They're going to do DPS, but you're not building them for DPS. You're building them for the utility of putting statuses. And so you'll notice some differences here. So we're using Barrel Diffusion over Galvanized Diffusion because Galvanized Diffusion requires us to get kills with this weapon for it to stack. Well, on a ZDPS build, a utility build, you're not going to get kills. You're just going to be putting statuses. And so Galvanized Diffusion is only 110 multi-shot, whereas Barrel Diffusion is 120. So we're going to use Barrel Diffusion instead of Galvanized Diffusion. We're going to be using Sure Shot for 90% status chance. And it's the same reason. If we scroll over to Galvanized Shot, which is the galvanized version of Sure Shot, Galvanized Shot is 80% status chance instead of 90. But you get the on kill, you get more direct damage. Well, we don't care about killing. We just care about using this as a utility. So we're going to be using Sure Shot instead of Galvanized Shot. We're still using Lethal Torrent because multi-shot is going to help us put more statuses on. We're going to be using Anemic Agility for fire rate. There's another option here, and that's in my primer too. and I'll show that later. We're going to use Jolt and Pistol Pestilence to make corrosive. But the important thing, we actually don't really even care about the statuses that we're producing here, because secondary encumber is going to be giving us all the statuses in the world. So we don't care about the statuses we're producing. Like, honestly, if the Compressa just had like cold, I would use it. But the thing is these 60/60s give us more status chance. So like that's why we're using all these 60/60s, right? So like, we have Jolt and Pistol Pestilence, not necessarily to make corrosive. Corrosive is nice, but we get 120 status chance out of both of those. We're using Scorch to make heat. Heat's nice, but we get that 60% status chance out of it. So that's going to boost our status even higher. Then we're going to be using Stunning Speed for reload speed and 30% status chance. And again, we're going for Lethal Momentum for projectile speed in the Exilus. And then the important thing is, as the Arcane, it's going to be secondary encumber. So every time you do a status effect, you have a 24% chance to trigger another random status effect. And that could be anything. It doesn't have to be anything that's even on the weapon. It could just be a random, status effect that you don't have on the weapon. And so let me show this off real quick. I'm sure for people that use this, they kind of know what it looks like. But just in case you don't, I'm just going to shoot one time. So I shoot one time, and look at all those statuses. Guy has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different statuses, and he has like a crap load of stacks of each of them. So if you shoot a few times here, I mean, look at, I can't even count that. It's got a lot of statuses. Dude's got a lot of statuses. So now if I was to switch over to my melee and start whacking them, that condition overload is going to do a lot more damage. Okay. And I want to show off that second primer. So Primer 1 and Primer 2 are exactly the same, except for this slot right here. So Primer 1, there's Anemic Agility. Primer 2, there's Primed Fulmination. So the Compressa, like we were talking with the radial attack, you shoot it, it embeds, and in about, I think it's like 0.6 seconds later, it explodes, and it does like an AoE effect. And that AoE effect also applies statuses. And so Prime Fulmination increases the range of that AoE effect. So it's really up to you. Do you want to prime more enemies in a range with Prime Fulmination? Or do you want it to feel a little bit like more comfy using it because you can shoot faster? So I'll show real quick Primer 2, what it looks like shooting. And note the fire rate too. And then I'll show what Primer 1 looked like here. Primer 1 is going to be a lot quicker, but it's going to be less AoE. It's still a respectable AoE, though. So those are two different ways you could build out the primer. There's not a lot of room for messing about with it. You could change stunning speed, but the reload really helps. Yeah, and you really want the status chance on here. You really want the status chance on here. You really want the status chance on here. The multi-shot's amazing. The multi-shot's amazing. And you really want the status chance. So there's not a lot of room to play with the primer build except for these two mod slots. And I think stunning speed is pretty good because you get status chance and reload speed, which are both really good. So, okay. Let me stop running my mouth here in the simulacrum. Let me get back to Orbiter, and I'll show off the damage build in gameplay. Let me just double check that I've actually switched to it and I didn't do anything weird. I still have empowered on. Very good. So again, because we're not mixing this with any kind of external factors, I'm going to be doing this on a Big Dumb Inaros with no Archon shards that increase weapon performance. No Sentinel weapon and no mods on my Sentinel that increase weapon performance. And also no mods on my Inaros that increase weapon performance. I don't know if I said that already. So, okay, let's start up that Kuva Survival. Steel Path, of course. Once in a while, you'll see me press my 3 to give myself armor and status immunity, but that's the only thing it does. It does not do anything to switch weapon performance around at all. Nothing on the build actually requires me to aim in. I just kind of have a habit of aiming in, just so you know. So for, I've seen a few comments from some peeps, and I completely understand them, and I'm completely with them. They were saying that they're not big on like weapons that you have to aim in on, and I understand that. There's a lot of people that don't like to aim in. I've heard, but I don't know myself. I've heard that on controller sometimes it can be hard to like aim and get headshots. So maybe if someone's on like on controller, could be hard to like consistently get headshots with like a scope build. So I have a few weapons that people have suggested that I have to get through, but maybe like in between a couple of them, I'll try to throw another weapon that's a little bit less like aim intensive. That's maybe more of an AoE type weapon. Because, you know, that is a real thing that there are a lot of people that either have a hard time with aiming. I don't want to say that because that, you know, maybe it's not really a skill issue. If you're on controller, it's just difficult. It's harder to aim on a controller than it is on a PC. It's not really a skill issue. It's more of an equipment issue. And I usually try to like eke out as much DPS as I can out of a build, and that usually requires using scope. But there are a lot of builds that you don't need to use scope in, so maybe I'll try to focus on that when I do a weapon this week. So the Compressa is a very, very good weapon. I did not test it against the Acolyte, so I'm gonna see how it does there. I don't know that it's gonna be that good against the Acolyte. I may surprise myself, but the thing with the Acolytes is they can only stack elements to 4 on them, or statuses to 4. So you can't like stack a crap load of statuses. So I'm kind of wondering how it's going to be on the Acolyte. It may surprise me. It may do pretty good. I'm trying to farm the little life sports, but I might have to make my way to the big life sports here in a second. I'm down to almost 40% here. I'm also going to try to fit in some melee weapons, unless people have suggested melee weapons. I'll be trying to fit in some melee weapon builds in between like the ranged weapon builds. Just because I've kind of neglected doing melee minus like 2 of them, and I didn't really like the very first video I made on melee. I didn't like the format too much. So I basically only have like 1 melee weapon build that I'm happy with up. So I'm probably going to try to get a little bit more melee builds up, maybe like in between the ranged builds. But if anyone has suggestions on melee, make sure you let me know. I lost my little list of suggestions that I had, and I started trying to remember all of these suggestions, and I wrote them down. And actually, let me get my little list here real quick. So I have Opticore, Compressa, which is the one I'm doing right now, Ocucore, and the Kuva Stubbas. So if you have suggested something in the past and I haven't done it yet, please let me know in the comments. I tried to go back like 15, 20 videos and read all the comments to see if I missed any, and I think I got them all from like 15-ish videos ago. But if you didn't hear a weapon that you've suggested on there, and I haven't done it yet, make sure you let me know in the comments, and I'll add it to this list. But I am sorry about that. I lost my little list of suggestions that I had sitting next to my computer. So we have the Acolyte coming here. I'm going to make sure I have my 3 back up so he doesn't beat the shit out of me. It's Torment. He's not too bad. He's more annoying than he is hard. He has the stupid Hydroid wave. Oh my goodness, it does really good damage against him. He's dead. That was very good. That was extremely surprising. I wasn't sure how this was going to do against the Acolyte. I was like, well, it's a status weapon. It does a lot of statuses. You can't do a lot of statuses to Acolytes. Might not be that great. It was, in fact, that great. The other thing I like about Cascadia Empowered that you have to consider, because like Flare's really good. Flare might be about as strong as Empowered. It could even be stronger for later game content. But keep this in mind. Cascadia Empowered, you can literally just whip this weapon out and you're at max strength already. Because Cascadia Empowered doesn't have a cap you have to get to. Whereas like Flare, you have to get a certain amount of heat stacks. Although, you know, keep in mind this is this is producing a ridiculous amount of heat. You probably cap Flare in like a second. Look at this guy right here. Let's see. 1 magazine, he's at 400. I think that was 400 heat procs before he died. So yeah, I guess that is a little bit negligible. You'd fill Flare up in like a second. I think I'm going to head over to that next set of life sports. We'll change the scenery up so we're not just in a hallway jumping back and forth. I'll add some armor and some status immunity. Oh, did we meet this weapon's match, the Arctic Eximus bubble? Oh, it broke it. It was like 2 magazines to break that Arctic Eximus bubble. So as a primary damage source, I mean, this is pretty strong. When I do these tests, weapons that are average are usually like 350 to 400 kills in 10 minutes. I have a feeling this is going to be well over that. I have a feeling we're going to be in like the 600 range. I haven't had any ammo issues yet, so I think Lethal Momentum is the way to go. When we do the Lewis Circulus after this, maybe we'll come to a different conclusion. But so far, I think we're correct with the Lethal Momentum being the better one. It's not exactly hit scan, but it feels a little bit more hit scan than without that Lethal Momentum. Because there is a little bit of travel time on the bubbles. I had tried this weapon out as a crit weapon too, because sometimes weirdly status weapons will still perform better on crit than they will on status, just because crit's kind of OP. But this weapon was not one of them. This definitely did perform a lot better as a full status weapon with no crit mods. So, and I was actually kind of happy with that because it allowed me to fit all of the proper status mods that I wanted on here. I guess not all of them, right? I mean, I wouldn't mind fulmination on the actual damage build, but you can't fit that without neutering your damage a bit. You can fit it on the primer build, though. You just have to choose that or anemic agility. All right, we're at 10 minutes. Let me kill this acolyte real quick. All right, he's dead. So we're at 751 kills. That is amazing. That's extremely powerful. That's better than some of the Incarnate weapons we've tested. So let's get out of here. Let's find the green marker. There it is. I thought it was over here. Oh yeah, this part of Kuva Fortress, if you come down in the basement here, there's a little terminal. If you click it, it'll lower the floor and you can like go up that way. If you want. I like doing that. So the Compressa, it's behind, I'm trying to remember if it's the Vent Kids or if it's from the Bash Lab in the dojo. I think it's Vent Kids, though. I think it's actually from the Vent Kids in Fortuna. So that would mean you would have to do everyone's favorite content, skateboards. You would have to do skateboard content to unlock the Compressa. Everyone loves doing that stuff. Honestly, they should just make Warframe all skateboards. I don't even know why we, do other things. All right, so let's queue up that Lua conjunction here. Lua conjunction is going to be a little bit higher level enemies, 180 to 200, or Circulus rather. Mixed enemies, so not just all Grineer, and it's going to force me to fight Thraxes, which are big, fat, tanky Grineers.
These foes deserve your respect. Honor them with
So I'm going to cast this right here to get some armor and status immunity. I wonder if status immunity, can they not steal my weapons if I have status immunity? I wonder that. Nope, asshole stole my weapon. Status immunity does not help against that. Did he steal it again? He did. I hate those Drag Masters. I hate them so much. Just remember, a lot of people poo-poo on flat damage, and yes, there is like diminishing returns on it, but it's important to have flat damage on your weapon. So because we're using Cascadia Empowered, and that's technically not flat damage, like if we were using Flare, it's 480% flat damage, that's fine. But because we're using Empowered, that's not technically flat damage. And so if you were to, for some reason, like choose, like maybe you had a Riven and you were trying to figure out a mod to get rid of, be careful about getting rid of Hornet Strike, because that's 220 flat damage. So that's our biggest source besides Galvanized Shot, which doesn't actually affect everything. Galvanized Shot's only direct damage. So Hornet Strike, even though it's flat damage and it's not a lot, it's actually pretty critical. You definitely want to be keeping Hornet Strike on there. So that's why I said, like if you're going to replace something like for a Riven, it could be Galvanized Shot being your weakest option. It would suck to get rid of that status chance on it, but maybe you had a Riven that had status chance plus some other stuff. Then you wouldn't have to be too salty about getting rid of Galvanized Shot. But I think Hornet Strike is stronger than Galvanized Shot on this weapon. Actually, it's kind of close, actually, because Hornet Strike doesn't have status chance, does it? It's just flat. Whereas Galvanized Shot has a little bit of flat that's not affecting the radials, though. But it does have that 80 status. Now, if you decided instead of Cascadia Empowered to use Cascadia Flare, you don't have to worry about that because Cascadia Flare is just straight up 480 flat on the weapon. And Empowered will give you more burst damage, but I think Flare, like I feel that because of the larger increase in flat damage, I think you're going to get bigger fire ticks on Flare, and so on larger enemies, like way later into Steel Path, it'll probably beat out Empowered. Oh, they stole my weapon, as is tradition. Yeah, if there's any weapons you guys want to see, just let me know. My little to-do list is getting pretty small. We finished the Compressa, so what I got? I got the Opticore, the Core, the Kuvas Stubbas, and I mean that's it. That's 3 weapons, unless I missed one. Like I said, if you suggested one you haven't seen it yet, let me know. But if I got everyone, that's only 3 weapons after this one. So make sure you suggest whatever you want to see. Even if it's something weird, like I do art guns now too. I mean, I can show skateboards, I can show necromech builds. I pretty much have everything in the game, except for the Ruvox. The Ruvox I just finished building on Sunday. It's probably still sitting in my foundry. I was just talking about that this morning, that I got to take it out of my foundry, and I never took it out of my foundry. So we have Malice. He's the most dangerous Acolyte. He puts a mag bubble on you. There it is. I'm going to roll out of that mag bubble. I'll try to kill him quick so I can go to the life sports. I do need a few life sports. This is surprisingly really good against the Acolytes. We're getting close to 100 videos done. I'm very excited about that. My 100 video mark. I think I'm going to do something special for the 100th video. I think I'm going to do like a tier list. I'm going to be a basic bitch, and I'm going to do a tier list. I think what I'll do, though, is I'll do a tier list of all the weapons that I've done so far. So it won't be anything that I haven't done yet. So I'll go over like all the weapons I've done so far. I'll put them in a tier list. And yeah, and then I'll keep doing my my videos that I do every day with the weapons, and then we'll work on making the index for the next tier list. I've never done like a tier list video. I think there's like a website or like a program that I can just like bring up that little tier list like background where you can put your pictures and stuff in. I don't know. I'll have to find it. I'm not super tech savvy, but I'll figure it out. It'll take me a bit. That's mostly why I don't edit my videos either, because I don't know how to. I do them all in one take. Which, it's a good and a bad thing. I try to streamline it so there's not a lot of downtime in between. Like, I'm not going through a lot of loading screens and stuff. But it is a little bit of a con. Like, I probably could edit out, like, loading screens and stuff. But I think the positives about it is that it shows actual gameplay. I'm not just editing the best moments of weapons. Because you could take the Stug and make it look like a god tier weapon if you edit out like very specific portions to it, even though that's not actually the case. So people get to see like just normal actual gameplay of a weapon. I'm sure I will get better at like learning all the tech stuff behind streaming and posting. It's just that it takes me a little bit. I'm an older guy, and I've never been very tech savvy. Oh, I got my Nora weekly done. Kill 30 exits. Oh, for anyone that doesn't know, the Nora thing is switching over too pretty soon. I don't know the actual date, but I know it's kind of soon. And for people that are new, your Nora tokens won't carry over into the next Nora season. So whenever that does switch, like I think they'll give you a heads up. But when you get that heads up, don't be sitting on a crap load of Nora tokens. Make sure you spend every bit of them you can. Because the only thing you can do with them afterwards is sell them for credits, and that's it. They don't sell for a lot. It is nice to use a weapon that I don't have to like be super anal about getting headshots with. Like I can just kind of chill with this weapon and just kind of shoot it in the general direction of enemies. I do like that. Like I said, a lot of my builds, they eke out like every bit of DPS I can. And so a lot of them have to use scope to do that. But this one doesn't. Although I tried to. Like I said, I tried to make a crit build with this at first. I was like, I wonder if it works with a crit build. And so I put like, I don't think it's called scope. It's called something else on secondaries. But I put that on this with the other critical mod. And I was like, nah, it's still pretty ass. It needs to be a status build. All right, let me hit those 2 life sports here. I'll hit this one, and then we'll head to the last one there. And that'll probably be where the Thraxes spawn anyway. We're probably hurting a little bit of our kill per minute here, just because of moving locations. But I think it's okay. I think this weapon has kind of shown itself being a pretty OP weapon. All right. Enemies will not respawn. They'll just kind of try to head to you, but they head to you very slowly. So I'm going to kind of meet these guys halfway. That way I can farm some little life sports while I'm waiting for the Thraxes to come. Now we have the Acolyte coming and the Thraxes. Thraxes are going to be main priority. They're the ones that are going to be sucking life sport. Misery. Oh my goodness, here we go. Salt, why don't you use Materai when you do these? What's wrong with you? Trying to kill these Thraxes with Unairu or whatever the hell I have on. I don't even know what I have on half the time. Probably Unairu because I'm a sucker for armor. It's like, oh, 200 more armor. I'll take it. All right, let's finish off this guy here, and then we'll check how many kills we have. I know it'll be a little bit past 10 minutes, but I'm trying not to like kill a crap load of trash here. All right, he's dead. So 618, it's really good. You expect to get a little bit less kills in Lua Conjunction just because you spend more time fighting big dudes. And we did spend more time like looking for life sports too. But that's okay. 618 is still well above average. It's a very good number. So the Compressa is actually pretty amazing. Even as a primary damage source, you know, everyone looks at this as a primer. It's a good primer too, but damn, look at the damage source in this thing too. This is a pretty damn good weapon by itself. If you're using this as your damage source, you don't actually need to prime with it. So yeah, that's the Compressa. It is a pretty cool weapon. Definitely worth building out. You just got to do everyone's favorite content is the skateboards on the Vent Kids. But other than that, I hope you guys liked it. If you liked it, consider giving it a like. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing, or tell me what I can do to earn your sub. And thank you so much, guys. I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.